All right, Joe, welcome to the podcast. Thank you for coming on. Thank you
Thank
for
you for having me.
thank you for filling out the form and putting your name in the hat. You did say right before we got started, this is not something you normally do. So thank you for taking a leap and wanting to tell your story. That's what we're here for.
Good.
So I think what's really fascinating is on the form you put your kind of your trajectory, and I searched through that quite a bit. I looked at your LinkedIn, I looked at kind of your path up through your career, which I think is quite fascinating. And my pre-title for this episode is kind of from welding student to company president, because it kind of I think encapsulates your entire story. So do you want to walk me through your timeline and let
Sure.
everybody know what you started and kind of where you're at now?
It all started in 1975. Yeah, I'm pretty old. High school vocational program.
Okay.
Actually, they didn't have a dedicated welding program. I took maintenance mechanics, which was
Mm.
plumbing, pipe fitting, and a little bit of welding. I kind of took off on that. Started welding in my senior year. Uh, Back then, it was called work study. They have some other names for it now.
Sure.
But I actually worked from 11 p.m. to 11 a.m., 5 days a week, got
Oof.
off work, went to school for, I think, half a day, my whole senior year. Um,
When'd you sleep?
During the day, after my chores were done at home, but when you're 17, 18 years old, you don't need a lot of sleep. So I do now, but I didn't then.
Yeah, I hear you.
Um, and it's morphed from there. And I welded. The majority of my career was at a defense contractor in Maryland.
Okay.
Um, Worked there, went up through the ranks, supervisor, and then and my wife. I got to say, my wife was a school teacher, retired. Um, but in 1989, I took a job teaching vocational high school
Mm.
um, for 10 years. Loved it, and again, went to school at night instead of during the day. Um, Then I had a friend of mine who worked at Earlbeck, was our engineering director here. Shout out to Jerry Cramlett. He had called me that summer, one summer in '89, I'm sorry, '99, and said, "Do you want to work this summer?" I'm like, no, not really. My wife and I are both off. But what are you doing? They were putting in a new school training center in our Baltimore location, um, 5,000 square foot. He asked me to come in and sort of run the construction,
Mm.
do some of the work. I thought, okay, that would be pretty fun, and I get paid, which is even better. And we worked on that, and then that very shortly that morphed into that September prior to me going back to school. Uh, Jim Robeck offered me a sales job,
Mm.
outside sales. So I had to go crawl back to my principal and say I'm not coming back to school. Um, and it was tough. It wasn't a tough transition. It was tough leaving students,
Mm.
especially ones that you've worked with for the last few years. You've had a student say, when I would discipline, "What do you care? You're leaving us." You know,
Ah.
because I had to work. I had to work at least 30 days
Yeah.
notice, and started in outside sales. And 6 months into that, I thought, why didn't I do this earlier in my career? Because I love working with students. There's something about seeing kids succeed and become something and learn something. But the only thing that changed was the students. It was the same thing every day. And I'm not going to harp on the school systems, but between then and now, they really changed it. Back then, they started really making this change, which I guess they think it was okay. But so sales was something different every day, a
Mm.
different problem, a different solution. I got to meet people, like in your position, using my background, solving their problems. That was pretty neat. And I believe around 2005, I was in '99, 2005, I was made the sales. We never had a sales manager, but I was made the sales manager, and managed the sales force. And then, gosh, about 5 years ago, I became vice president of sales. Um, did a little bit more than just manage the sales guys, whatever was needed. And then a year ago, they asked me to be the president, which I greatly accepted. Um, because we've had some transitions. Jim Earlbeck's semi-retired, a
Mm.
great resource to have around 2 or 3 days a week. Allison Earlbeck, his daughter, is in the business. She is now the CEO, doing a fantastic job. So I'm like the bridge from the old to the new, you
Yeah.
know. Um, and I manage in this capacity. My focus is really on the sales side and our operation side. We have a fill plant in our Baltimore location. We actually fill the
Okay.
cylinders that welders use, oxygen, acetylene, stuff like that. We actually do that here. And that's the trip. And I've been at Earlbeck's for this is next week will be my start of my 26th year here.
Oh,
So
congratulations. That's amazing.
I believe I'm probably with the exception of Jim Earlbeck, I have the longest tenure right now.
Hey.
So yeah, but it's fun. It's great people. It's challenging. Like I'm sure your position's challenging at times. Um, but it's all what you make of it and who your mentor is. Jim's a
Mm.
great mentor. I will give him the credit for changing me a lot over the years. You know, when you're young and you come from a trade, your philosophy is you've got a job, do it. If you don't like it, go somewhere else. And seriously, that's the way I think most of us in my age started. And then you learn that's not the way you do things. So you have to learn
Mm.
different ways to work with people, motivate people. It's been fun. It really has. It's been fun. Um, I have no regrets whatsoever. You
Wow.
know.
Well, oh my gosh, if everyone could live a life like that, holy smokes. So, a couple things popped out at me, Joe, from that story. One, it sounds like you have an incredible work ethic because in multiple times in your life, you were not even working multiple jobs, but like you stacked a lot into each of your days because you
Yep.
knew what was that motivation that come from your parents? It was because you wanted something better. What did that look like?
Well, I think it's from my father. You know, it's if you're going to do something, do it right or don't do it.
Hmm.
A lot of it was need. You know, you want to make a living, you want to make the best you can. And I've had a philosophy that um, choice, not chance, determines destiny. You can't sit
Ooh.
around and wait for it to come to you. Every step that I made was a conscious choice. Luckily, by me, I didn't have to do it. You know, I could have been retired from teaching now with a nice pension because I left a nice pension. Um, but I made the choice because I thought this is really what I wanted to do, and it's worked out well. You know, I'd like to think I made the right choice
Mm.
for
Well, if you
myself as well as my family.
Well, if
You
you
know,
say you have no regrets, I would say you definitely made the right choice.
yeah.
That's really good because a couple of things that jump out at me there is one, we are responsible for our own choices and our own destinies, and sometimes we get it right, sometimes we get it wrong. You deal with
Hmm.
that, you pivot, right? You kind of keep on trucking. The other thing that surprised me, not surprised me, but the other thing that stood out in the story was you got promoted into manager or supervisor or leadership roles quite often through that
Hmm.
career. Why do you think that is?
I'd like to think it was because of what I've done, the way I've handled myself, instead of just because I was the only one that was willing to do it. But I think loyalty has a lot to do with it. You
Mm.
know, I joke with Jim when I say Jim Earlbeck, and so I'm not the best looking person, I'm not the richest person, but I'm probably the most loyal person you're ever going to find. I'm not going to follow you through hell. I'll push you out of the way. Eh, and I've been rewarded because of that.
Mm.
I've been very well, I don't want to say compensated, very well taken care of.
Sure.
This is my family, as we all are here at Earlbeck. When I say it's a family business, I'm just not talking about blood family. We treat everybody like family. Um, there's not a day where I get up and go, geez, I don't want to go to work today. You know,
Wow.
the people here are great. Obviously, we've had our ups and downs over the years. You're going to have problem
We
employees,
all
and
do.
you deal with that. But right now, I believe we've got one of the best teams we could possibly have. You
Mm.
know, and I like to share that. I expect loyalty, and in return, I give you the same. You know,
Mm.
um, but I just think it's just the way I am. You know, I'm very dedicated. I'm very habitual. I'm in bed at 9, up at 4 every day. And I am habitual to a fault sometimes. Um, and that's helped me, I believe. There's a lot of times where you can just go, "Ah, I'll do that later," or I don't want to do that, so I'll look the other way. Especially when you have problems in business. You
Mm,
can't do that. You've got to meet them head on. Um, and it's worked out well. It really has. It really has. And I'm looking to do this for probably another 5 years. You
good
know,
for you.
I'll be 70 or 71. Yeah, 71. And I think, because again, everybody says, when are you going to retire and do what? I don't golf. I have a bunch of grandchildren, but now they're at that age where they just don't want to hang with pop that much. They're
Sure.
teenagers. Um, but I don't golf. Plus, my wife's retired. So I don't, as long as I enjoy what I'm doing, I'm healthy and I can do it, I'm going to do it. You know,
Mm.
I'm not much for
So
sitting on the porch.
no, I hear you. Want to ask you a couple things about that because that piques my interest in a couple areas. Do you one? I'm sure you want to keep working because you just said you enjoy. Is there a piece of you that feels that a piece of your identity is work?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's me. It's a big piece. Now, I've got two things. I've got work and family.
Okay.
And I don't believe in neglecting the family. Um, Work is not the most important thing in my life. It's
Okay.
me, but it's not the most important thing in my life. My family comes first. And working here, that really works out well. If
Okay.
I need, little league games, my wife and I, we never miss games. If
No.
I need to leave early for something, it's just, there's no question. You just do it.
So you have flexibility there.
Absolutely.
What would you say to companies, leaders that are struggling with the idea of flexibility for either the current workforce, younger workforce? Everybody wants it. I don't care whether you're
Yep.
19 or whether you're 57. Everybody wants flexibility. It's not a generational thing, I promise you. At least that's what I believe.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the flexible things that everybody was talking about COVID was working from home.
Yeah.
And I think you see that more and more coming to a stop.
Mm,
Um, I just read an article the other day that the job offerings where it's okay to work virtually are starting to slow up. Obviously, there's some industries where it works well. I don't want to say I'm against it. I lean away from it simply because how do I judge your management skills, your personality with others when you're at home all the time and you're just virtual, Um, but most of our customer service people, purchasing, they all have laptops.
mhm.
So if something comes up, they can work from home that day and do their job. We transfer the phones to their cell. So we do well with that. We don't have anybody that is always working from home. We have one or two people who might work from home 1 or 2 days a week, and they're here the rest of the time. As far as dealing with other flexibility issues, I think you need to take each one on an individual basis. I don't believe there's a blanket policy that you can have that, hey, if you want to take every other Friday off, knock yourself out. We've got to, at the end of the day, there's a business that needs to be run.
Mm,
And you need to work the best you can with people, work for them
mm.
to help them in their family life. And again, I think what we have here, we can do that. Now, obviously, the welding instructors in our schools, you can't. You have to be here.
Right.
You know, and most of the people are pretty much cross trained. So that if someone happens to be out, we can pick that up. Um, but it's a tough question, the flexibility, because you can go so far. You've got so much latitude, and after that, you just got to stop. You
Mm,
know, um, and again, it depends on your business. If you're working at a call center, it's different than working in a manufacturing facility.
yep.
On the floor. And it's different from working on your floor than it is up in your administrative offices.
Yeah.
So it's tough. My only suggestion is look at each individual case, do what's best for the company as well as the employee. That there's nothing better you can do. How do you do that? I think is strictly up to you. And you got to learn these things. You're going to fail sometimes. Trust me. Um, Somebody that never fails in that aspect or never has anyone mad at them because of the decisions really aren't doing anything, you know?
Yeah, one of my favorite stats that I usually say, especially when I'm talking about management, executive management, or if just people are upset with management, I say, listen, like I'm happy if I get 51% of people that aren't angry at a decision we made. Like that's a win, right?
Absolutely. Yep.
Because it's hard. We're complicated as human beings, and trying to get it right or trying to get the majority of the situations right, it's a difficult task for sure.
But I believe if you bring people into those decision-making processes,
Love that.
we, someone and I, my Pennsylvania regional sales manager, we were talking today about goals for the sales force up there. And it's like, don't just lay goals down for them. The company has a set of goals that we need, but you need to have them come up with their goals to achieve those goals and
Mm.
their personal goals. You let them be part of this because if they're part of it, obviously they're going to be more inclined to work towards those goals because they're their goals. So, look,
What would
nobody
you
said it was easy.
Yeah, no doubt. Exactly. Um, what would you say was the main contributor to your evolution in your change of how to manage people? You mentioned that as you were coming up, it was listen, just do the job because I told you, and do it
Hmm.
this way because we've done it 1,000 times and it's the right way. I'm only saying this from experience because this is what I hear right inside
Hmm.
of our place. And it's the struggle of sometimes you got to let people figure it out themselves, even if it's going to cost you a little money. At least this is what I
Yep.
believe. So what did that evolution look like? Was it a mentor? Was it trial and error? Was it, I don't know, what'd you go through?
Yes. And it's still evolving. Let me say it's still evolving.
Sure.
Jim Earlbeck, who I consider my friend and mentor, was very good at that. Um, in teaching me that we have a sales meeting. I'll give you an example. And someone would say something. I had a plan, and this is what I want. Someone would be against that, and I would automatically get defensive. Not nasty, but Jim could tell I was getting defensive.
Mm.
So after the sales meeting, we'd talk. We would review every sales meeting that he was just a person. I was running it, and we'd talk about those things. And I'd say, you have a point. And I noticed myself always wanting to jump in, right? Before they were finished talking. Now I sit back and just listen.
Mm.
You got two ears, one mouth, use them proportionally. It took a while, but I did that. That was the biggest part of everything. Trust me. Listening to people, letting them vent, um, not telling them they're necessarily wrong, but maybe have a discussion,
Mm.
not a debate, a discussion. Make them part of whatever we're trying to do. Solicit their opinions. Um, and never fly off the handle. I've never yelled at anybody, put it that way. Um, but I think Jim was the biggest mentor. He's excellent in talking to people and coming up with solutions like that. And you just listen. Again, with the sales force, you listen, and with Jim, you listen. Keep your mouth shut, just listen, and put those policies in place. And over the once you get a start on that, then it's so much easier to start getting your own thoughts and your own decision. You go home and you go, did I handle that right? It
Mm.
wasn't, was Jim watching me and going to talk? It's, did I handle that right? And if you think you didn't, you need to go back and revisit it with that person. Everybody has a bad day, but you need to go back and revisit it with that person, and and realizing the fact that you could be wrong. It's it's tough to do sometimes.
All the
Um,
time.
yeah, but you got to be willing to admit it, and take actions to fix it. So,
No, and I mean, huge props to you because one, I mean, Jim sounds like an incredible person, um, and to take the time, it's so to take the time as a leader to help someone through something that you see that they're struggling with, right? Like jumping
mhm,
over someone in a meeting is may seem minor to people, but it is a huge deal.
yep,
Virtual meeting etiquette versus in-person etiquette, they're very similar, but they're very painful for the people that kind of get trampled. And if it's not corrected, or those people don't get corrected in their motivation or what they're trying to do in the meeting, it can just everybody shuts down, right? Nobody then brings up any ideas, and you lose all innovation. Coaching someone through that, like you had to be open to the feedback because not everybody is, Joe. Some people,
mhm,
it's very painful to be self reflective and look at things, especially with your boss, to be like, okay, I'm going to listen because this person, obviously, Jim has a lot of experience. He's taking time out of his day to help mentor me. So props to you for being open and reviewing those things. I think that is such a brilliant way. What you said is like, you have to relive those moments where you're not sure if you're not. I can remember the 4 times I've yelled since I've been at SWF, and I hate all 4 of them because they were wrong on every account, and I shouldn't have done it because that was me handling the situation wrong. It wasn't the other person. I handled that situation wrong, and I hate it. And you have to go back to that person, just like you said, and solve it, resolve it,
Sure,
smooth it out.
sure. And again, I feel that I'm better because of that,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and it's much easier to get the job done because of handling people like that. I shouldn't use the term handling people, speaking with people.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I think you're
I,
dead
I
on.
don't think there's anyone that is afraid to come to me with any kind of issue, um, because we'll work it out. We'll figure it out. We made some mistakes at this company, trust me, as you had, that have cost money,
Yeah.
and we just move forward. We don't dwell on it. We figure out what happened, what we're going to do to prevent it again, and move forward. You know,
Yeah.
and I've
Yeah.
made
That's
some of those mistakes. So
same Z's. I can
yep.
think of a couple. Um, so I want to walk through, and you were a welder for 10 years. Is that correct?
Gosh, about 14 probably.
Okay. So when you were a welder, what was your favorite part of that? What did you love? What really honed you in on welding?
Looking at the end result of something you did, getting better and better and better. Because you can't hide a weld. I mean, you can grind it off, but um,
I love that.
I worked for a defense contractor, and we didn't do it. You know, the final product is what we had.
Mm,
Um, and just to see yourself getting better and stretching it, you know, you could see what you did. That was great. You know, it's fantastic. And I've always enjoyed working with my hands and accomplishing something with my hands. Could have been a carpenter, could have been a plumber like my son, whatever. But I just picked welding and I really enjoyed it, you know.
mm. Is your hobbies, now that you're more of an office person, is your hobbies more going back and working with your hands? Is that how you still scratch that itch?
No. I don't own a welder in my house. Don't
Okay.
want to. Well, actually I don't need to because I have them here, but and I was just thinking about this the other day. It's like I might come down on a weekend and just go into school and do some welding just to keep my hands, you know. I have an 18-year-old grandson who's really into it,
Yeah.
and him and I come down on weekends once in a while,
Cool.
and well, he really enjoys it, and I enjoy that part of it. Uh, it was the great thing about having that skilled trade when I went into teaching. It's like, you know, if this gig doesn't work, I always have a trade default. I've always had that my whole life. Now at 66 years old, it's like, no, I better straighten up and stay flying right because I don't want to go back to doing that. Um, but it's you know, it's hobby wise. My hobbies are I have ride motorcycles.
Nice.
Um, spend time with my wife and grandchildren. I mean, my grandchildren take up. You got to remember they're in sports, and
All
we
of your
follow
time.
that year round. And like right now, we've got one that plays little league on Monday, Wednesday. The other two play on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Excuse me. So that's 4 days a week.
Yeah.
I get up at 4. I get home at 9. So that's kind of my hobby, you know. Again, I
Stacking it
don't
again,
golf.
Joe.
Yeah, you know.
That's awesome. What was the toughest part during that when you were a welder? What didn't you like doing? Grinding.
Well, if you had it, what part of that was probably carbon arcing.
Okay.
We did a lot of X-ray. You know what carbon arc gouging is? We did a lot of X-ray work, and we had to do a lot of carbon arc. But I
Okay.
really, you know, I just enjoyed it. I can't really say. And I worked for a great company. It was AAI Corporation, which is now Textron.
Okay.
It was a great company. I didn't get up and say, "Gosh, I don't want to do this." Great company to work for. Nice work. Um, as far as welding goes, clean work. But I just enjoyed it. You know, I really did.
What
Um,
makes a great company when you're a welder?
uh, just the way they treat their employees.
Mm,
Example: 2 or 3 times in my career there, the United Steelworkers, and I'm not bashing unions, they tried to get us to vote union in. 2 or 3 times they did that. 2 or 3 times it failed because we always thought that when The union came in, they would say, okay, the company now has to do this or that. And the company right away is going to say, okay, now you have to do this or that. Whereas when you work for a great company, they treated you fair, they paid a good wage, and you enjoyed going to work there. Did I have the greatest supervisors? No, I had some that I really liked, some that didn't work out as well. Um, Obviously, benefits, money. You know, I tell these kids. We were having a discussion the other day with Jim. Wages have never kept up, never will keep up with inflation. I'm talking about example in I look 1970. I love statistics and I love politics. 1970 to 2024, the average salary has increased 580%. The average car has increased 1,500%. The average home has increased 1,690%. So wages have not kept up with all this stuff. But I look back in 1989, I was making $15 an hour, which was very good. Um, Whereas today, you might have some kids out there that are scratching to get $15 an hour,
Mm,
even in the welding trade, depending upon their skills.
yeah, love that.
But I think if you got a company that's fair, pays you fair, has great benefits, allows you to grow, helps you grow,
Mm,
it's a great company to work for. You know,
yeah,
um, Here we want people to grow. We never go, well, no, you stay in your lane. You've got your job. We want people to grow. Obviously, we're restricted on that somewhat because of the size of our company, but over the years, we want people to grow.
yeah, that's really good. How big are you guys? How many employees do you have?
We have 4 locations, 2 in Maryland, 2 in Pennsylvania, about 50 people
Okay,
total. We
wonderful.
have the York location. We in 2017 we bought a distributor in Scranton, Pennsylvania.
Okay,
Little mom and pop. We bought them, and they're doing exceptionally well. They've grown like you wouldn't believe.
great.
Baltimore's our main location in Maryland, and we have one in Beltsville, Maryland, down near College Park.
Okay, no, that's really good. As you know, you told me that timeline. We talked a little bit about it. Do you have any highlights that jump out through your career that you could let us in on? Like these are maybe 2 or 3 things that really, I was really happy with my either progress or an achievement in that timeline.
Oh, wow. Well, achievements, and I do not like to talk about achievements. And one might say every step I've had here is an achievement.
Ooh, I
I think
agree.
I've may have had the ultimate achievement being named the president.
Ooh, very
Um,
good. Nice.
but things along the way are, I'm a Miller Master Pro, Miller Electric. You know,
Nice.
um, uh, I feel good about that for the reason that there's a whole bunch of tests and training you need to do, or you can test out. I chose the test out option, and it made it so it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
I saved a lot of time, um, but I think that our growth to me is I'm part of that achievement. You
Mm,
know, when I started here, I believe there was oh gosh about 15 employees.
wow.
So the 15 to 50 is indicative of our growth, our revenue growth. It's not just we hired a lot of people,
Yeah,
you
sure.
know. We might have had 2 trucks when I start. We've got 5 now,
Beautiful.
and I believe I was part of all that. I
Sure.
hope. I hope. So, and to me, that's the greatest achievement here is where we are in 2024 versus 1999. I think it's my biggest achievement. You know.
Yeah, I love that. So whenever I talk to Al about success of the company back when he was still alive, when we'd have conversations about work, he always talked about the number of people. That was success for him, was how many people were employed. He
Hmm.
always took a lot of pride in that. And I see that a lot with people because you're able to have enough revenue and profits to really keep people happy, comfortable, and then provide that service to more and more people. I think is
Yep.
is really inspiring. So yeah, he always talked in very similar vein in that. I love that.
And the Earlbeck family has always put the money back into the business.
Mm.
I know some distributors that it goes to them. The
Sure.
business suffers. Um, we have always put money. If you ever come down to you stop at our York location, it's not your typical distributor.
Yeah.
When you walk in, it looks like a retail store. Um, Same in Baltimore. We had a major renovation years ago we did, and um, I think that's important. The face that you put on your business,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, that's really good.
and the investments we've made.
Yeah. No, that's a good one, especially back in that kind of aids in the growth path, right? Especially as you're watching it go, you're going to need more trucks, right? These are all investment
Yep.
pieces that you're going to have to figure out. How many different types of welding can you do, Joe?
Oh, me personally,
Yeah.
I had 13 certifications, and that was
Let's
MIG,
go.
stick, MIG, and TIG,
Okay.
and flux core.
Okay. So you got it all covered.
Yeah, my favorite was probably flux core.
Ooh,
You
why?
know, just because of the way it is. I just love running it. Smooth, it's easy. I started out welding in '75 doing just stick welding. I made expansion joints for bridges. And
Mm.
it was all stick welding, which is okay. It's great to learn that. Um, I'll have people ask me, I'm going to take classes at your school, grandkids or friends. What should I take a class? What should and I'll explain later how our classes are
Yeah.
structured, but
Yeah.
what should I take? What should I focus on? MIG, stick, TIG. And mine is MIG welding because if you're looking to get a job, I will find you a job quicker with MIG welding skills than I will with stick welding. You know, there's jobs for all, but if you want a quick job, stick with MIG welding, you know?
That is a perfect world example. We are actually going through that right now of training people who are not proficient in MIG because when we get into uh, huge weldments that we got
Hmm.
to, that are very large in diameter, the speed of the MIG is
Oh, yeah.
so much faster than anything else that like that's where we're gaining hours, right? And if you're proficient and you have no issues welding, you are absolutely correct that that speed of that side is, and it is not, it's not as, at least in our company, it's interesting to see the dynamic of the people who need to be trained on it versus coming in with your TIG welding skills or something like that.
Yep. And it's probably the easiest of the processes to learn. Easiest and quickest, you
Hey,
know?
now that I know that,
Um,
I'm not holding any punches, Joe.
there you go.
I love that. Oh man, that's good. So during your welding instructor days, what did you love about that? What did you really enjoy?
I always love working with kids.
Okay.
Throughout my son growing up, Little League, I was a commissioner. I love working with kids in baseball and sports. And again, the greatest thing was you get these kids in, and the first year they're there for a half a year, and you start to feel them out and see, and then you see Johnny signed up for class next year, and you go, "Oh, great, man! I don't need this kid. I've had him for a half a year. I don't." And then Johnny comes back and turns out to be one of your best students.
Mm.
That's really good. I've got two of my former students that work for us
Get
at
out.
Earlbeck. One is our branch manager in Beltsville, and the other one is an outside sales rep. Was the branch manager of York, now he's an outside sales rep. So, and many of those students have become my friends, customers, and friends. Um, it's pretty bad when my students are actually, some of my students could be grandparents by now, I guess, you know. Um, but these guys that work for us are like 46, so I've known them for 30 years.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, see children, see. I use the word kids, but see kids grow.
Yeah.
You know, um, you dealt with their problems at home. You were a counselor of sort. You know, um, I had two boys. I'll give you a story. I won't tell you their names. Two boys were twins, and they didn't have a good. They wouldn't mind me telling you the story, but they had a really bad home life. But great kids, great kids, scholar athletes. Because
Mm.
they all went to a. We were a center. They were bussed in midday for vocational training from 7 different schools. And I heard them talking about their mother one day, not really good. And I said, "Hey, man, that's your mother." Well, what she care? She's gone. She took off. Well, where are you living? Well, I'm living with my girlfriend's family, and he's living with his girlfriend. But these kids went to college. Both became welding engineers. Went to Laterno
Wow.
University. One worked for us for a few years. Now he works down in Houston in the oil fields,
Yeah,
engineering
sure.
and quality. Um, but they had written in their senior year, and I have it somewhere. They had written me a letter about how I had influenced their life.
Mm.
I don't even want to talk about that because I'll get emotional.
I love it.
But that's the kind of stuff that you never forget. And at the end of the day, that's what makes it worthwhile.
Yeah.
You had some kids that you never want to see again, you know,
Yeah.
and you had some fantastic ones. And I always joke that because I go into customers and I'll see people. It's like, I know that guy. Who
Yeah.
is that? And then I realized it was one of my students. If you were really good, I remembered you. If you were really bad, I remembered you. The kid that just floated through and never gave me any problems, I tend to forget their names, you know.
Yeah.
But I've made some good friends. It was good memories. Again, I moved on. Um, I still have friends there. Well, most of them are starting to retire now, but it was good. Again, just seeing kids grow, you know,
Yeah.
making a
Potential.
choice, getting better and getting better and getting better, and putting them out in the workforce,
Mm.
you know, because we had work study there as well.
Yeah,
And
that's
my
brilliant.
goal was to get as many of them out there on work study as I could, you know.
Yeah. That's really brilliant. What was your go-to saying or phrase for your students? Did you have any catchphrases that they could?
Choice, not chance, determines destiny.
Nice.
If AJ Barnes, my sales guy, comes in here right now and you ask him that question, he will tell you that because I said it time and time again. You know, because again, you think about that, and I don't know where I didn't make that up. Trust me, but if you think about that, there's no truer statement.
Mm.
You can sit around and wait, or you can make it happen. You know, and you need to do that. So,
Yeah.
but that's the one I remember. I am a wizard when it comes to catchphrases and sayings. But that one sticks with me. It really does. It really
Yeah,
does.
that's brilliant. When you're in your sales days, so when you were the VP of sales, or what was the best part of that, with that part of your career? What did you like about sales?
Again, growing people. It's
Mm.
not students, not kids. It's adults. Growing them, training them, coaching them, and seeing them succeed. There's nothing better than that. You know, when you get a guy, you hire him. He was a set. He worked for us for a few years in the warehouse. He left us and went to a competitor, and he was like a branch manager of one of their stores. So we talked one day over dinner. I know he was looking, so I hired him. And I went to an industry thing in Phoenix or whatever, one of our industry things, and the HR lady from that company he worked for said, "How's Brent?" Oops, shouldn't have said that. "How's he doing?" And I said, "He's doing great." She goes, "We just don't think he's going to make it in sales. We never thought he would make it in sales. That's why we never put him there." And
Mm.
I told him that, and that was a huge motivation. Um, and he took to it. He does very well. He's been with us, gosh, about 17 years now. Um, but that kind of stuff, you know, I can't take credit for all of it. I'd love to, but I had this mentor in Jim, and then the young people like my former student who got into sales with us. I believe I'm a mentor to him. You
Mm.
know, most of the time he calls me with a problem, and I give him an answer. He says, "I know you're going to say that. I knew that's what you were going to say." But to see him grow and get better, because look, I believe a lot of people think sales is easy. Sales is a skilled trade, just like a welder, a plumber, a lawyer, a doctor.
Brilliant.
Some can do it, some can't. There's training, and I'm not talking about just a sales trainer come in and teach you how to close. You
Right.
know, that's the simple stuff. But learning how to find out what Brandon's problems are with his company and how we can help him change those, that takes a special person. Um, Again, 2 ears, one mouth. Biggest rule I have in sales: shut up and listen. Quit talking. Quit talking. Um, but I think that was the greatest thing about doing that is training, seeing people grow, seeing their numbers go up. And it's not about the money, but the numbers grow as they grow, you know, as they should. But just helping them out, watching them grow.
Mm. Joe, we walk into an elevator. We're on the ground floor. We're going to elevation 11. In that time, what I ask you, Joe, what makes a great salesperson?
What is my elevator speech? Again, a great salesperson is one who listens, talks less. Just don't talk. Um, Provide solutions, can build rapport with customers. To me, the most important thing is response. When you
Ooh,
say
good
you're going to
one.
do something, you do it. When you say I got to call Brandon back by 2, you call Brandon back by 2. If you can't call him back by 2, you better let him know why you can't.
That's very
And
good.
that's just our philosophy here. But I think those things, does skill and knowledge of welding make a great salesperson? No. I've done both. Um, we've hired people because, oh, they were welders. They know all about welding. They didn't last long. Our Pennsylvania regional sales manager came to us with no welding skills, worked for an elevator company selling service contracts. He's got a degree in business, and he impressed us. So I said, okay, let's hire this guy. He jumped in. The poor guy, he got hired January of 20 when COVID hit.
Rough.
Couldn't get him out to customers. You probably weren't allowing vendors in, couldn't get him out to customers. So luckily, he could take that time and go on Miller's website, Lincoln's website, Feronius's website, and do all of their training modules. And we put him through our school as well. Um, I'll match him up against any salespeople, even on equipment sales, period.
Wow.
And the fact that he's our sales manager, a leader. So the welding background to me is not important. If you've got it and you can learn the other stuff, it's a plus. Um, if you had to ask me today which I would rather have today, I'd probably have somebody that's good at sales
Mm.
than good at welding.
Mm. That's really good. Yeah, you're really you're focusing on the people skills over the knowledge
Absolutely.
because the empathetic approach is more important than knowing the right answer all the time.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
And,
really
and we
good.
focus on that. We preach that. You do not need to be a welding engineer. We have those here. We've got, well, if you can't answer a question for a customer, just say, I don't know. But
Yeah.
I've got a whole slew of people that can tell me, and I'll get back to you, and then get back to them.
Yep.
You know,
Yeah, it's really that simple. Stay in your lane. If you don't know, don't make things up and just go find the answer and get
absolutely.
it back.
Jeez. Yep.
That's so good. What is the best thing about being president?
Getting to talk to you. Um,
We
Again,
could
it
have done that
all,
in VP of sales too, Joe.
yeah, that's true. It all, again, I keep going back to helping people, leading people.
Yeah.
I don't manage people, you know.
Mm.
I don't, you should be a leader, not a manager. You know what I mean?
What's the difference?
Oh gosh, I can have anybody tell people what to do.
I
A
love it.
leader helps them grow. And you could have obviously you could have a manager do that, but I
Yeah.
believe leadership is more important than management.
Okay.
Leadership, you grow the people that you have um, to the best of your abilities. You allow them to grow. You help them grow, but more importantly, you got to allow them to grow. Whereas a manager says, "Okay, how many calls did you make today?" You know, I'll check that box off. You know, how many leads are you? What's your funnel look like? I'll check
Mm.
that off. There's a big difference when it comes to me sales. There's the mindset of you monitor how many calls they make, how many cold calls they make, how many of this activities, KPIs. There's the other side that says get good people and get the hell out of their way and let
Yeah.
them go. Um, that's what I want. I want a team of those. I've got a few. I don't have a whole team. Nobody's going to have all A players. Um, C players, you have to grow, you have to learn. And again, I'm not one in just throwing people overboard.
Yeah.
If they're struggling, we need to find out why. We need to
Mm.
work with them and give them a chance. At the end of the day, if there comes a time you have to let people go, you have to let them go because they're not in the right seat on our bus. We need to give them the ability to find the right seat somewhere else, maybe. You know,
That's good.
um, we don't do it often, thank God. Um, our sales force now, John, who's been here since 2020 in York's probably the youngest.
Wow.
Everybody else has been with us for a while. But president is the best thing about it is strategically what we need to do. I have a sign to look at every day. It's right here on this screen. Don't worry about what you did 2 years ago or the last 2 years. Worry about what you need to do in the next 2 years. And that's what we need to look at. Don't worry about the last two. What do we want to do in the next two? Um, Whether it's infrastructure projects,
Sure.
um, increasing, modernizing our fill plant, stuff like that. Um, but again, it's all about managing people again. That's the biggest part of my job. I mean, I get the people that walk in and say, "Oh, it's going to snow, and we only got one bag of salt. What should I do?" You still have that.
Yeah.
It's like just go buy salt. You know, um, but I have the easiest job in the company. I will say that. I believe I do because if all of the pistons are running and the motor's humming, we're good. You
Mm,
know, you need to do a tune up once in a while. That's okay. So I got the greatest job around, I think.
that's amazing. Those are really great answers. I want to get into these training centers because this is
Okay.
it's a huge deal. What does this look like? Where did it start? What are you guys
Let me
doing
tell
with
you
this?
how it started.
Okay.
Um, it started before me, 30 years ago or more, when inverter machines, when the fancy machines came into be. You used to have transformer rectifiers, inverters come in. You would sell the machine and you show people how to set it and do this. And back then there was 20 knobs on there. Nowadays there's one or two. And you had to put this cable in here, this cable in there. And they would come back and go, "You got to show me this again."
Mm,
And then Jim got to think, well, maybe you ought to start teaching welding too. When I came here, we had four little welding. I'm pointing, which doesn't matter to you because you don't know where. We have four little welding booths in our. With that time was our service area, and it was mainly for customers. Contract customer. You got Johnny that drives a forklift. He's a great guy. You don't want to lose him, and you want to increase his skills, and you need welders. So you bring Johnny in, we train him, and then that started to morph because even before that, we would do welder qualifications. We are an ATF, an accredited test facility for the AWS. So we will certify you any code known to man. We did a lot of those. Um, we would manage full code books for our customers, large customers. We do all the
wow.
training, testing, manage all their stuff. And then we said, this training thing is going to be pretty good. So we opened up the school. We started with 12 booths in Baltimore in 99. Oh gosh, I want to say 10 years ago, we put six more booths in
Wow.
because of growth. And it was funny because there was years where it was pretty slim, but historically, when something like COVID, well, we can't use COVID because we shut the school down, but when in 2007 and 8, when the economy tanked, we would see our numbers go up because people were looking for new jobs, new skills. And it's
Mm,
always followed that cyclical
yeah.
economic thing. Um, And I think about 3 years ago, we actually put three more booths. We got 23 total now in Baltimore. Just don't have any more room. And out back here, we have a 40-foot mobile training center. We have 8 booths in it. That started in 2001. We got a contract with Mantech, and it was to train the Virginia Department of Transportation, all of their people in all of their 9 locations.
Wow.
We did that until last year, every
Wow.
year. Now we've taken it to jail, prisons for 2 weeks. We've done it with county things, but that was the main bread and butter of that trailer. Um, right now we're looking for places to put it, or we can take it to a high school and have a welding day. You know, um, and then that opened. Then that got us in. We opened up the York location in 2014. We have 8 booths there, easy expandable. It took us a while to get traction. In York when the training, but it's really starting to grow. Um, we actually have in our Scranton location, we have a technical college up there that runs our curriculum. We work it out on the back end. We have another physical location with a community college in here in Maryland. They have their own building. The equipment belongs to Earlbeck, and the instructor is our instructor. So
Mm,
they supply the building and the utilities. We supply everything else. Then we have 2 other community colleges who have their own welding program that run our curriculum, do our curriculum. So we can do it anyway. We've got 3 or 4 community colleges. If you go to their catalog and you see welding and you want to take that, you pay them, and we fulfill the training here. So we've got training covered. We train to our customers. Again, Johnny on the forklift. Um, Guy can walk down the street and say, I want to learn how to weld. There's a big draw from the community colleges. We get a lot of that. I don't know the split right now, but we're really starting to focus. My focus is um, we're focusing on high schools. We've had in the last 2 months, we've had 3 schools.
Oh,
One in well, it's actually a Maryland school, Hereford High. We took them to York because it was closer, and they went to York. We had 2 in Baltimore. We'll bring students in for a day, do a little safety, suit them up, do a little welding, and obviously feed them pizza. We want to get that spark going,
yeah,
and
literally.
I believe that's important because, and I use Pennsylvania where you're from. I'm from Maryland. Pennsylvania, 2023 school years, the latest stats I have, there was 402,000 10th, 11th, and 12th graders
Mm.
in that school system. If you use the national average of about 60% of those are going to sign up for college, that doesn't mean they're going to graduate, but they say that they sign. Excuse me, that's 241,000 students that are going to go to college. That leaves 161,000 students. CTE classes, vocational classes, if you're old like me, there's only 69,000 students.
Mm.
And there's a reason for that. There's only so many seats. If you doubled the amount of vocational CTE schools in Pennsylvania next year, they would be full, but they're
Wow.
not. There's 69,000 students. That leaves 92,000 students who aren't on a college track, who are not on in any vocational program. A percentage of those will get truck driver school, HVAC, Earlbeck. It's like, what do these kids do when they get out of school? I don't want to knock McDonald's, but it's not a career choice unless
Mm.
you want to move into management, upper management.
Sure.
Um, I actually that's my first job, McDonald's, 15 or
Hey.
16. Um, but we want to focus on those kids. We're really putting our focus. I think in June we're running a summer camp in our York location. Obviously, we're limited on the number of students. It's about 24 students, um, but it's $60. We give them lunch
Mm.
every day. We're going to work with them every day. We're going to take them on field trips to manufacturers. 2 that I know of in York. They've invited the students, and that's what we try and do. We've got to do something. And I remember teaching. We would have 8th graders come in once a year for a little bit, and you could see the fire. That's no pun intended. You could see the fire in it when they started cutting metal and welding. How many of those kids came back to welding? I don't know, but it got a spark going. Again, no pun intended. Um, but that's what we're trying to do. We're
Yeah.
trying to do that. Is it biased? Absolutely. We're a for-profit place. Um, and I always balance that for-profit statement with we do a lot for the community.
Yeah, sure.
Um, we have several, well, any local college, the University of Maryland, Naval Academy, they all have the SAE car engineering groups. They build uh, an Indy type car, they build an off road car, and we bring them in once a year on a Saturday for the whole day, feed them obviously, and teach them welding skills, TIG welding. We don't charge anybody for that. We have the Boy Scouts come in. They
Mm.
actually have a merit badge now. We have the Girl Scouts come in. We have 4-H come in. So try to balance. We really want to balance that for-profit statement with we do a lot pro bono stuff just for the community, you know.
Mm.
And if you ever trust me, if you ever have something like that come up, let us know. I don't know if with your kids or in any groups like that we work something out. We're more than glad to work with them.
Well, no, and that's exactly what I was thinking, Joe. For a company like SWF, like what do you need from us? What are you looking for from industrial companies? How can we help in some of that?
As far as testing and training,
Just anything. I mean, I'm very interested in like, do I want to take some of the younger students we have that really just started full time because they just graduated, right?
yep,
And maybe can I take a couple days or a week to buff up their skills that's outside of our facility so,
yep.
they really
A
get
couple of
something that
things we'll do. We have standard classes.
sure.
But we also obviously tailor classes to people like SWF.
Okay.
The way our first, well, actually, which I recommend to everybody that's a non-welder that's thinking about making welding their career. One Saturday a month, we have a 8 a.m. to noon class here in Baltimore and York. It's $192. It's all. Take that class because you'll take it and you'll go, boy, this, I really want to continue. Good for you. Or you take it and go, this is not what I thought it was. Good for you.
Yeah.
I really want you to do that. And if it's a dollar figure, let me know. I'll put you in it free. Let's be careful what we say here, but I've done that before with students. I just had a couple.
Understood.
It's like, look, they're unsure. Come on a Saturday, take this class. I'll put you in at no charge.
Yeah.
And then for the non-welder, we have fundamentals of welding. That covers a little bit of stick, a little bit of TIG, excuse me, a little bit of MIG, and some oxy-fuel welding because we think that's very good for hand-eye coordination. Maybe some plasma cutting and torch cutting in there as well. And then unlike other schools where you start here and you have to finish here, you can take fundamentals and say, I'm good.
Okay.
I got enough to work on the weekend. I'm good.
A little a la
On my
carte.
cars. Yep.
Yeah.
And then after that, you can decide on intermediate, MIG, TIG, or stick. You can take them all, but it's one class at a time. Then you finish that, you can move into advanced MIG, TIG, or stick. Don't have to, but if you want to, you can. With every intermediate class and every advanced class is an AWS or an ASME test. So if you take stick intermediate, it's a D1.1 structural steel test. If you take advanced stick, that's pipe welding, you're going to take a ASME pipe test.
Okay.
And if you pass it, you get the papers.
Beautiful.
But for companies, what we can do is tailor something that fits you. We do it a lot. We find out what you want, give you a price. We prefer to do it here at our facility. Some people have enough welders, they want to do it on site, and that's fine. We can roll the trailer if it's.
I was gonna say, bring that trailer, Joe.
We can roll the trailer. The trailer can get expensive on a daily basis, though.
I'm sure.
But we can do any and all of the above.
Okay.
And then the other part of our business, we've really got three parts of the business. We've got obviously we're a distributor of welding equipment, industrial gases, specialty gases, bulk gases, and the training and testing side. We probably do about, I'm guessing about 2,500 welder qualifications or procedures a year.
Wow. Every
Tuesday and Thursday, we've got people in here train. That's when we do our testing days. And we saw the parts here. We bend. We just don't do the X-ray. We'll send if an X-ray is required. With most code, it's not. But we also have the third leg of this stool. Is we have a full engineering department, mechanical engineers, welding engineers. That the school falls under that, but we do failure analysis. We do code work. We've testified for people in courts before on lawsuits. But we just met with a company in New York yesterday, which I won't mention, pretty good sized manufacturers. They're struggling a little bit and they need some help. So we go in and we look at from the time the metal hits the building to the time the product leaves. And then we analyze all that. We come back with process improvement, things we can do to improve their efficiency, reduce their labor, and at the end of the day, make them more profitable. That's our niche in the market, the training, the engineering. Look, my competitors, we all sell equipment and gases, but we also focus on this, which I think sets us, gosh, I'm biased, but I think it sets us apart.
Yeah, sure.
We all do the same thing. We're just a little different,
Yeah.
If you can't be better, be different. And I think we are.
No, I love that. That's just the process improvement. I always call it, I love when we have office people walk through the shop who normally don't from a safety perspective because they just don't wear those glasses all the time and they'll look at things and go, and we walk by it every day, right? Because we're so used to seeing it. So it's the same process. You're bringing an outside source to go, what do you guys do that? Oh, we've been doing it for 15 years, right?
Right. But and you have to be acceptable to having your baby called ugly.
Hey,
because people don't like that.
Yeah.
What do you mean? We've been doing it for 15 years. You got to be very careful with this,
Yeah, sure.
I
love that.
But you're talking about, I just thought of this when you said you have people, other eyes. I've always said this, that I believe it's our employees, your employees, it's their responsibility to bring to you ideas.
Mm,
Because you know everybody, including yourself, as you were growing up in any business, you would say, why do they do this way? Why don't they do this? This is stupid. This would be easier. We've all done it. Let us know. Have your door open for all of that. Now, we can discuss everything. Obviously, we can't change everything, but you'd be surprised the ideas that people have that you never realize because you've been doing it for 15 years. It's worked, but now you find a way to do it a little bit better, a little bit more efficient, a little bit more economical, just because you listen to someone.
mm.
I think that's important as far as leadership.
Yeah, so how do you nourish that innovation, those innovational ideas? How do you
Demand
let
it,
them Ooh, what do you mean?
demand it. Have a meeting and say, look, I expect everyone to do this.
Okay.
But again, well, I guess when I say demand, you got to be careful the way I said it. But
No, I
seriously, you
understand.
demand it. I expect this from you. You're part of this. As this company grows, you will grow. And we need your input in order to grow, be more efficient. Because being more efficient doesn't mean we pay you less.
Mm,
It means we could probably pay you more,
yeah.
you know. But you demand it in that great leadership fashion that you should have.
Yeah. So let me back that up with
My
another
door's
question.
always open.
Let me back that up with another question because this little tangent is very fascinating to me because I love the innovation conversation. So there are plenty of companies and plenty of leaders who demand innovation from their employees, but there are plenty of companies and plenty of employees who will never bring it forward because of A, B, C, and D. So just because you ask someone to do something doesn't mean they're going to do it.
Mhm.
How do you get the response you're looking for, do you believe that people will actually bring things forward? How do you make that happen? It's not magic.
Well, there's some companies that have a rewards program for that.
Hmm.
I have found whether it's sales guys, I mean, our guys are salary and commission, but there might be some, hey, I want you to focus on this, and if you do this, you'll get more money. It really doesn't drive people
Hmm.
unless it's. I'm a firm believer. If Brandon worked for me, and you came to me, if I came to you tomorrow and said, Brandon, I'm going to give you $10 an hour more starting next week, and walked away, you would thank me, but you probably wouldn't do any more work. You know, um, just because he just gave it to me. But I think if you have an open process, well, you can bring people in individually and say, give me one idea. Take 3 days, come back in 3 days. I need one idea from you that you think can make your job easier or better. And I bet you they will if you
Hmm.
ask. Again, forget the word demand. I just say, when I say
Oh.
I expect people to do that, and we
Yep.
do. I think the attitude and the atmosphere around here allows for that.
Ah,
And if
thank
it
you. Yep.
doesn't, then you're going to have a hard time doing that.
Yep.
If
That's where I was
people
at.
know they can walk in here and talk to me and I will listen, and whether the baby's ugly or not, I'm not going to tell them they're ugly right then. I'm going to start asking questions. And if you ask the right questions, then they might sit there and go, man, that wasn't a great idea.
Hmm.
Because they haven't thought it all the way through. But you got to have that conversation. And
Sure.
again, you got to have the atmosphere that people know they can do that. But you'll never get them to do it unless you ask.
Yeah,
You
I
know,
like that a lot.
you'll never get them to even think about it.
Yeah. So I have a big harp on chain of command as well. Like I appreciate it. I believe in it to a point. I do think chain of command can stop innovation because I
Yep.
do believe we all have shit days, and we'll have our direct reports bring ideas or innovations to us, and we'll be like, you know what, I'm worried about home life right now. I don't want to
Uh
hear
huh.
about this bullshit. And
Uh huh.
then that's when, and I try to preach this as much as I can. Please keep going. I will not always be in the right headspace. Find someone who will listen to your idea, and
Yep.
you feel like you got the feedback. How do you feel about that? Because some people are completely against going around other people.
Um, you got to be careful. If you set the stage that, and I'm not maybe talking about innovation, I'm talking about anything in a daily work day.
Okay.
You've got the people that have a manager that has a manager that I manage. They consistently want to come to me.
Mm.
And it's like, okay, hang on. Did you see so and so first? Well, no. Well, you need it. You got to be very careful because
Yep.
you'll cut your management down.
Mhm.
But I'll tell you one thing I tell every new employee every time I interview somebody. One of our rules here, this was my rule, question authority. That doesn't mean
Hey.
that doesn't mean to tell Joe to go to hell. That means to come up to me and go, why do we do this way?
Oh, I love that.
Don't just take what I say as gospel. Question me, because we all get into our little bubbles. Well, everybody's got a bubble,
Yeah.
and it's so hard to break that bubble. It took me 26 years here to break that bubble. But everybody has a bubble, and you got to get outside that bubble. And the only way to get outside is to have somebody question you. And again, you got, it's. I remember a student one time. I said they would call me different things, Mr. V. This. I said, look, whatever. And one kid called me Joe, student, and I said, call me whatever you want. Put a Mister in front of it. And some kid says, okay, Mr. Asshole. I'm like, you didn't get what I said. And same thing with this. Question me in a respectful way, and I don't mean because of my position, because I'm a human being and I will respect you. But question authority. Why
Mm.
do we do this? Don't just do it. If you think there's something we can do better, do it or ask. Because look, there's not a soul here that doesn't want to be more efficient in management. Trust me, because it makes things a lot easier. And we don't have a problem investing in efficiencies, as long as the ROI is good. Obviously,
Yeah,
you
that's
know.
really good. I don't think I've heard it phrased as questioning authority before. At least I have not run across that myself. That is a very good way to put it because one, people kind of love that phrase, right? Because
Yeah,
it's, you're a
it's
bit
kind of
badass.
turns them on. Like shit, I can tell this guy how I feel, and you
Respectfully.
can
Yeah.
absolutely. Well, I can get
It
down with the
depends on the,
rest of them, but yes, I would. I want to treat you with respect, and I expect
yes.
the same.
Now that's
Um,
really good. I think, Joe,
you
that
can use that, by the way. I'll let you
I
use that.
thank you. Yeah, I'm gonna probably that'll be on the post for this episode. Is this genius line you just dropped? Many genius lines, but I mean, huge props because the language you're using, it doesn't come natural. Leadership,
No,
I don't. It's a skill you have to fall upon that you get into, but it takes a long time to learn, and it's continuous improvement for the rest of your life. It's kind of like
absolutely,
safety, quality. Like you are gonna have to keep chipping away at who you grew up as, what your environment, what your choices that made, the failures you've made, whatever, the bridges you burned that you got to build again, all the decisions you make. And so I really, to have the environment that you're talking about is not easy. It's a constant work. I always call culture, it's like turning a cruise ship because you can't do it quick. You got to
nope.
take piece by piece and keep turning that baby around if you are trying to move it in a certain direction. So that is
And
very.
I will say that I follow a lot of your stuff on LinkedIn,
Mm,
and what I see in you is constantly striving to get those answers.
mm.
Whether it's putting the question out to everybody, and you're constantly doing that, and I appreciate that because it gets
Yeah,
people thinking.
yeah, a lot of that's just work experiences. I'll
Hmm.
just take something that happened, right? And I'll
Right.
generalize it because I don't want to make anybody feel weird. But like,
Hmm.
I don't know if we were right as a company in that decision, and I want to get feedback. And that's kind of where some of this podcasting started from. And I
Hmm.
realized the mission statement of this podcast just last week that it was proving that you can learn something from everyone. And
Absolutely.
I know everybody understands that phrase, but do you go into a conversation with anyone and actually think this person has value, no matter their position on any rung in any society, they
Hmm.
can teach you something? Because if you do that, like it'll change your life.
Yeah.
And I didn't think this way all the time up until just recently. And I read Dale Carnegie's book, and it changed my view on people and
Hmm.
how I need to invest in them.
Absolutely. That's at the end of the day, we've got this big building here. We got the big building. You've got a big building, but you've got people. At
Yeah,
the end of the day, that's all you have is people. Because if you don't
yeah.
have the people, the building doesn't mean shit, right?
I love that. That's
Or the
right.
equipment, the people, and you got to take care of those people.
Yeah, I
Um,
love that's really good. Um,
the best thing you ever want is somebody to say, I want a job at SWF or Earlbeck's because of
mm,
the way they treat people. And I've just heard it's a great place to work. Because you can pay me all the money in the world. And if I hate my job, I'm not working. I'm leaving.
you're exactly right. We do get wrapped up in the pay and everything else, but it's so funny because we're going through a culture initiative right now. And it is me making video clips of how we want to behave in SWF, and it's
Hmm.
embarrassing. And I know people are going to make fun of me. That's the plan. And I'm very excited about it. But like, this journey is really teaching me, like, as I talk to our employees about it, they go, I thought I was going to be like, this sounds terrible. But a lot of them are like, oh no, some of these interactions or conflicts, they're not necessary. And maybe if we're all aligned on the way we need to act, they'll go away and we'll get more efficient. I was like, everybody's so
Yeah.
brilliant. I love it.
Bingo.
Exactly. Absolutely love it. All right, I want to hit you with an overarching. What are three characteristics that you believe have helped you the most throughout your career?
Determination, loyalty. I keep going back to that because to me that's so important. Um, Constantly wanting to learn.
Hmm.
Just why does that do that? Why? How does this happen? Why does this happen? Again, I'm kind of I can spout out a lot of statistics because the worst thing you and I can do, well, not the worst thing, the good thing for me is we'll have a conversation and you'll bring up something that I'm not very familiar with. The very next thing I do when we get off, I start learning it because I want to have good conversations. Again, I'm a political junkie. Doesn't matter if you're right, left, in between. I just love how things work, whether it's politics, whether it's welding, whether it's a motorcycle, um, whether it's an Indian motorcycle, I should say, because everybody's, we can get into Harley versus Indian any day. But determination, loyalty, the willingness to learn, wanting to learn. I just think it's so important, you know,
Hmm.
because I'm curious. Maybe that's one. I'm just curious, you
That's
know.
really good. Let me ask you about the loyalty thing because it's very important to you.
It
How do
absolutely
you
is.
how do you handle that with your employees? Like, if you have someone that you really like that is working for you and they fit, but they have something else and they end up leaving, how do you handle that personally and then with the person?
They have something else and they want to
They
leave here.
they go to another job, yeah, a better opportunity in their eyes.
Well, I was going to say one thing, but when you finished up and said a better opportunity, I'm all for you.
Okay,
How can I help you get there?
that's
Seriously,
amazing.
I never want to hold anyone back.
Oh, I love that.
Never. I never want to hold anyone back. Um, do I expect people to have the same loyalty that I have? No, because I think
Mhm.
it's asking a lot. Um, if you have issues and you're not happy here, don't stay because you feel an obligation to me. You know, because I've had people that I know very well, we're good friends with, they left. That's okay. I wish you the best. I'll never hold you back. I don't want to hold you back.
Mm.
If you don't feel your seat is where you need to be here and it's over here, by all means go over there. We've had them go to competitors, and everybody gets all upset. Oh God, what are we going to do? They know all this. Who cares? We've had it happen before. We haven't lost any substantial business from it because it's not about what you're paying for something. It's about that relationship between you and us. It's not about that. It's about what we work together on, the partnership,
Yeah.
which is a word I think is overused, but the partnership. That's how Johnny can leave Earlbeck's and starts going to SW and all these customers, and he never wins
Mm.
because they say, okay, you're cheaper than Earlbeck, but when we've got an engineering problem, they're here. I like to say my competitor, they move boxes and they do a very good job of it. Let's not name competitor, but they do a very good job of moving boxes. But when you need engineering assistance and engineering support, that's what we do. And I think that is why we have customers for 30 or 40 years that are still
Yeah.
major players. And trust me, that price pressure from our competitors has been put on those. You know, our competitors aren't leaving us alone.
Mm.
We don't leave them alone.
Yeah.
But I know the new business that we get, and I also know the business we lose. And I think we're on the winning side of that, you know. And there's reasons for that. It's not price. You should never let it be price. Put it that way.
That's a great point.
Once
Yeah.
the conversation goes to price, you've lost. It should be value.
Yeah, I love that. I think the same way. I try to spout all the time. The only reason I want anyone to leave the company is because you found something that we can't provide you at this moment, and it'll better your
Hmm.
family and your career. Other than that, everything else is my fault. Like that's what it is.
Could be. Well, and you have to look at why,
Sure.
and you have to look at did we not nurture them, give them what they needed, and at the end of the day,
Coach
if you
their
did
leader.
all that, yeah, exactly. If you did all that, wish them the best. I want
Exactly.
people to be, I want people to be as happy in their position as I am. And if it's
Hey.
here, fantastic. If it's not here and it's somewhere else, whether it's a competitor or not, fantastic. I really want people to be happy.
Yeah,
So
it's really brilliant. What would you tell someone interested in a career in the trades or welding? What advice would you give them?
in any trade, or you mean welding?
It could be welding, or it can be just moving into the trades in general.
Find out which one you want to do. Put every single thing you have into learning that. Understand it's going to take time. You're not going to come out of Earlbeck's welding school and be a welder. You're going to be an entry level welder, and you're going to in a year on the job training. You're going to learn more than you could ever learn here or any other school.
Sure.
Find out what you really like to do. The old thing about I saw this the other day. Might have been Gary V or something. It's like
Love him.
they say find your passion. He's like bullshit. Find out what you like to do and do that the best you can. He may not have said it, might have been someone else, but it's like that makes sense.
Yeah.
Your passion will get fun. What you really like to do and you're good at will make you a living, you know,
Mm,
or you can make it your passion. Who knows?
yeah.
But I think find out what you really want to do. Try a little bit. Um, because you can, in my generation was you better know what you want to do by the time you're 18 or 19.
Mm,
You know, today it's like, well, you got 10 years or so. You can screw around and screw up till you're 30, as long as you don't have responsibilities. And then you can start on the right track. So find out what you want to do, put every ounce of energy you have into learning that, and be the very best at it. Because I want to be, I want to be the best for me. And I think that's what everybody should be. It's not about if you're better than anybody else. Be the best you can be for yourself. I don't care if you want to be a plumber, a welder, a carpenter, a lawyer, a dental hygienist. It doesn't matter. Do it and do it well.
yeah.
And like it. If you don't like it, find something else.
Mm,
Don't be miserable.
yeah. Yeah. It's really funny you say that because when you find somebody who just keeps staying in something that they're absolutely miserable with, you just ask yourself, why are you doing this?
Again. Well, and that's the thing about finding what you like, because it's different when you're miserable at a job at 25 and then when you're miserable at a job at 60.
Mm,
Big difference, you know. You've got another 5 or 6 years to be miserable because you're not going to find something else, maybe.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's really good. This was fascinating to me, Joe.
I had fun.
I didn't know a lot about you. I did a little bit of research. We've communicated back and forth before with some of the school stuff we had going on. Some of
Yep.
the actually the students we had were, going deep into some competitions, which you
Yeah, and
may know.
you never got back to me on that helmet for that kid. So
Oh my God, I didn't.
find him. I'll still give him one.
I will find him and I will let you know. That's my fault. Um, one your career trajectory is absolutely, I mean, what an accomplishment. And the ability to evolve as leadership and your leadership style is hard. So huge kudos for that. The words you use, the insight you used today taught me a lot as well. It gave me a lot to think about, especially with areas I may be struggling currently. So this is one of the reasons I love doing this.
Mhm.
Um, and you know, all of the different, I think what's really fascinated me is that it wasn't all on the same plane. Like, yes, it was welding and it was that type of arena, but
Mhm.
going from welding to teaching to sales to ops to
Right.
president, like those are not all in the same vein and they're not the same skills. So
Right.
it blows me away to have an umbrella that's large enough to incorporate all of that, and it just shows your ability to evolve and change, and then to be mentored by Jim, and just then be in the president's seat and be really happy. Like you should be really proud.
I don't pat myself on the back,
I know.
um, but I'm happy.
Yeah.
Um, and you guys to make sure you tell them that. That's all. And
Yeah.
I keep getting asked, are you going to be able to get a copy of this podcast? I'm like, I'm sure there's something,
Yes.
Spotify or somebody.
Yeah, so the podcast will be everywhere, and I will put your specific episode like I do everybody's on the Monday, Tuesday with some clips and stuff like that. It will be on YouTube. It will be on all the audio things you could possibly imagine. So I'll make
Okay.
sure you get multiple links to that. But the one thing I want to say to the audience before we go, no Johnnies were hurt in the making of this episode. We reference Johnny a lot. Johnny's the go-to poor guy, whoever that is out there. You
Well,
got beat up.
Johnny will like the fact, yeah. My
There
John
is
that
a
I mentioned
Johnny.
will like the fact. Yes, there is a John. But you got to use something when you talk about people. Johnny, Jimmy, Joey.
Yeah, I
You
love
know.
it. No, I love it. I just yeah, it's funny that everybody has that different person, and
Right,
everybody will
right,
use a different name. It's really
right.
funny.
But no
Well,
Johnnies were hurt or embarrassed.
yeah, exactly. So, Joe, it was amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time. Thanks for taking the lead. Thanks for filling out the form and actually wanting to do this because not everybody's really comfortable doing something like this. So I
Well,
appreciate
I
it.
wasn't. I
Yeah.
seriously like, hey, should I have done this? But it's not like we're sitting together, you know.
Mm.
Um, I appreciate you having me on. I really do. And I I promise you lunch one day when I'm in your area, and I'll do
Hey,
that soon. I'll give you a shout.
one last question for you. Anybody who's nervous, thinking about it, a little afraid to step into doing something like this, what would you tell them after just going through it?
On your podcast,
Mm-hmm.
just sit and talk.
Hey,
Just sit and talk. You know, and I wasn't nervous about it. It's like, Christ, how are we going to fill up an hour about me or Earlbeck? You know,
that's my job.
and Allison Earlbeck said we should have put swag up behind you for Earlbeck. I said, look, trust me, when we get done, they're going to know who Earlbeck is. I can talk for another hour about Earlbeck, but I won't.
Yeah.
But it's, I'm worried about it. But it's, yeah, just sit down and talk and listen and have a good time. You know,
Yeah.
answer some questions. Some of them are hard, but
Yeah, I'll tell you what, you have represented the company very well. I have
well,
a
thank you.
completely different view. I know of you, but I will say one of my questions to my team is going to be like, hey, how can we work with them?
Hmm.
Because I am a firm believer in companies that perform very well with their employees and take it
Hmm.
seriously and about the leadership and the growth of their employees. And I love partnering. I know that
Right.
word is overused, but I love working because that's what we want to portray to our partners and our customers
Yep.
is come work with us. Yes, we're not always the cheapest, but these are the things we're doing for our employees in our community. And you guys are doing the same thing. I absolutely love that.
Absolutely. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Joe,
All right,
again.
my friend. You take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.